episode number 11.
You are listening to the More Than a Lawyer podcast with your host, Janine Esbrand. I'm here to help lawyers and mums to thrive in their careers and motherhood. I share tips, strategies and inspirational conversation with awesome women to help you reduce the struggle in your juggle.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm really excited about today's episode. As a Christian, my faith has really impacted my journey in both my career and motherhood. And on today's show, I'm going to be speaking to an amazing woman of faith, Entrice Rowe. She is a mother of 4 and she has so much to share with us. I had a great time speaking to her. We talk about successfully navigating career transition, raising a large family, staying connected with your spouse, and a whole lot more. So you do not want to miss this conversation. So join us as we chat. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Hey, welcome Entrice. I would really like for you to introduce yourself to our audience, tell us a bit about you, so we can find out where you're at and who you are.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Janine. It's such an honor to be on your show. And as you said, my name is Entrice Rowe, and I live in the United States in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm a life coach, and I work with women on getting clear on who they are so that they can have healthy relationships.
Okay.
So that's what I do. And I'm also a mom of 4. I'm a wife, and I love Jesus. That's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So there's a lot that we can talk about there.
Yes.
So let's start with you being a mum of 4. So a lot of our listeners are mums, women who are just transitioning into motherhood, who are just trying to get this whole motherhood thing worked out. So it would be great for you to just share with us a bit about what it's like to be a mum of 4. And I know you mentioned before that you've got twins in there too.
Yes.
So yeah, just tell us a bit about life with your tribe.
Yes, so we call them affectionately C4 because all of their names start with the C. So we have Christopher, Courtney, Chelsea, and Clayton.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and so it's funny because we call them C4, but then we call the twins the dynamic duo. So there's some dynamite in there.
Love it.
But they're such a joy. So my oldest is a boy, and he's 9. He'll be 10 this year. We're going to be rounding the curve into double digits. Wow. I'm like, I can't even believe it. And then we have a 7-year-old girl, and then we have 4-year-old boy-girl twins. Wow. And so when my it's funny because my husband and I were actually college sweethearts, even though we didn't attend the same college.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, so we met in college, and he came to my school for a transfer term, but then ended up having to go back to his school, which was across the country. I went to school in California, and he went to school in New Hampshire. But while we were dating, we had talked about our family and how many kids we wanted, and we always said 4. And then we got married, and we had 1, and I was like, I think 2 would be good. And he was like, wait, what happened to the vision of 4? I'm like, this is a lot of work.
It's hard. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was going to be so intense. And so there was some negotiating involved to get number 3, which turned into 3 and 4. I'm like, we got the go. We got a set of twins on the last go around.
So do you have twins in your family, or does he have twins in his family?
So it runs on the female side. So my grandma is a twin, yes. Wow. And then I have cousins that are triplets, and there's yes, tons of twins.
Okay.
To answer your question, but I didn't think my number was going to come up.
That is amazing.
Yes, but it's been great. It's been really great. I've learned so much through my children about myself.
Okay.
As well as, it's just really opened me up to just being more flexible in living, and just seeing the world through the eyes of a child it's just amazing, when you have that opportunity. So it's been a huge blessing to be a mom of 4.
Yeah, I can't relate to being a mum of 4. I'm a mum of 1, but I can relate to that whole aspect of a whole new world opening up. Because before you're a mum, you're a woman, and you feel like you know yourself, and
kind of figured stuff out in terms of life, kind of. And then you have a child and you're like, wait, I'm just a totally different person and I'm learning a whole new set of skills and a whole new way of doing things. And yeah, like you said, it's a blessing. I think it's just something that it is tough at times, but it's important for us to kind of celebrate motherhood and the privilege that it is to be a mum. So
Yes, I agree.
yeah.
Totally.
So in terms of being a mum of four, then are you what was your transition like? So going from being, I think you said you were a teacher before, and then
Yes.
becoming a mum, and now you're a coach. So tell us a bit about your journey through that and your transition, because a lot of people go through different transitions and sometimes struggle with the shift. So
Yes.
can you talk to us a bit about that?
I definitely can. So I'm one of those people who I've always have a plan, right?
Hmm.
So, um, excuse me. So since I was excuse me, I would say in high school, I knew that I wanted a family, right?
Yeah.
So when I would date, it probably seemed like an interview, but I would always be very upfront, you know. So I'm like, if you're not a candidate, let's keep it moving. And so,
Let's not waste
excuse me.
time.
Right. So when I met my husband, you know, when we talked about having children, I always knew that at some point I wanted to take some time to raise a family.
Okay.
But, you know, realistically, I always said if it didn't work out or we didn't have a large family, I knew that I wanted to be in education, but I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. So I got my undergrad degree in history, and then
Hmm.
I got my graduate degree, a master's in education, and a secondary degree to teach history. So I taught high school.
Okay.
So taught high school while we were engaged, and when we got married, and then our family planning actually happened pretty quickly. We were open to children, but hadn't we set like a schedule for children. So we're like, okay, so
It's happened.
now we're gonna have a baby. So we had agreed that I would take the first year off. Here in the United States, you know, you get a little bit of maternity leave, but that was the agreement we had made as a couple, that I would take some time off to be with the baby. But then, just as God would have it, He shifted us and actually moved us across country. So at the time, we were living in California,
Yeah.
and then we had to move to Florida. And so I didn't go back to my teaching position because we were moving. But when we moved to Florida, I had an opportunity to teach high school virtually.
Okay.
So I taught from home for, let's see, 4 years. I did virtual high school.
Oh wow, that's
So
so interesting.
yeah, so I was able to, you know, my son was 2 when we had our second child. So during that whole process, I was teaching virtual high school, and I taught virtual high school until she was about 2 years old, and that's when we started talking about having a third child. And I was like, at this point, it's a little bit much for me,
Yeah.
but to work full time outside of the home. But at the same time, I've been praying and really talking to God about purpose. Like, what is it that you have for me? Because one of my natural giftings is teaching, you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
but I didn't think that it was in the traditional sense. I always knew that there was more to it. And it's funny because I'm actually in the process of writing my first book. And the book is about finding purpose in your everyday, because a lot of times we look at it so linear, like, okay, this is the end goal. And,
Yeah.
you know, we spend so much time chasing the end goal that we miss like the opportunities along the way,
That is
you know?
so true.
Yeah. And so God showed me, you know, in my process, that everything was needed, you know, and it still is, and to develop into the person He's turning me into. But in terms of transitions, he's just really opened me up to see that, okay, it's necessary when you follow Him to be flexible, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
even though you may have an idea, don't get married to that idea,
Yeah.
because there may be some twists and turning, you know, to get you to where He wants you to be. So I really had to surrender my idea of what I thought I was called to do, you know.
Yeah.
My purpose was, and it's funny because it's lined up, what I'm doing now lines up exactly with His will. And I'm like, this is so natural, the coaching for me, you
Yeah.
know. But I needed that element of teaching, you know,
To prepare you.
in order to get to where I am now.
Yeah.
So I would suggest to a person or tell a person who's going through transition is just learn how to be flexible,
Yeah.
and learn the rhythm of grace. Like, you really have to give yourself grace to learn, during that period of transition. So a lot of times I feel like we don't make the space, we don't create space during transition in order to really just let ourselves grow, because what transitions are, it's really growth.
Yeah.
And so when we give ourselves that space to grow, we release ourselves of this crazy expectation that we create and we put on ourselves. And then we get overwhelmed and flustered. And it's like, oh, it's not working.
Yeah.
Just that's what I did. I just really started to kind of relax more and allow the Holy Spirit to lead and to really give up control.
Yeah.
So.
I can I love that, because it is so important to set goals and to have plans. But yes, a lot of us do get married to those plans, and then what happens is you have blinkers on and you don't allow yourself to really see the opportunities that are there. And I love the fact that you're open to God kind of leading the way in where you should go. So it's not all on you, as in I need to figure this out myself. It's
Right.
more, do you know what? Like, he's got a plan, and if you're just open to listening and looking for the clues and opening your mind to the possibilities, then you're gonna see that plan, and you're gonna be able to follow that plan and see it mapped out. So yeah, that's awesome. I know for me, I decided when I was quite young that I wanted to be a lawyer, and I had complete blinkers on. Like, I was just like, that is my goal, tunnel vision. This is what I need to do. How do I do this? Planned it all out, and then I just followed the path, and then I got there and was like, hey, this is cool. Like, I do enjoy being a lawyer, but it's definitely not all that is there for me. Like, I know that I have a lot of gifts that I'm not necessarily using in law, which is why I then decided to pursue coaching and found that yes, this is me. This is my way of helping other people, and my way of pouring into someone else and seeing them fulfill their potential, which just completely lights me up from the inside. And so, like you said about it being such a natural thing, like, I just love it, and it just comes naturally. And so it's using these elements of my talents, as well as the talent that it takes to be a lawyer, and realizing that that's okay. Like, it doesn't always have to be, so black and white. Like, I am this, or I am that. Like, you don't have to be just defined by your role. What you do is what you do. It's not who you are.
Amen,
I've
sister.
learned. Yeah.
Yes.
I've learned that over the
Yeah.
last couple years. I'm just like, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't have to be everything so pigeonholed.
Right. And doesn't it just give you like freedom?
Yeah.
This personal freedom. Like, I don't have to be who anybody wants me to be except who Christ says I am.
Yeah, exactly. And so not living up to expectations, I think, is a big thing for a lot of people, because like you mentioned, sometimes it's your own expectations, and then when you check it, it's just like, what is this based on? Like, where did I even get this idea that I need to be this person? And I can just decide to not be that person, and it's okay. You have a choice in everything. You have a choice in everything.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess we sometimes get stuck thinking the way that we think, and that's why it's good to kind of get someone from the outside to shine some light for you and just say, you know what? How about thinking about it this way?
Mm-hmm.
And that can really work really well. So, in terms of any challenges that you face, then, like, you've mentioned how strong your faith is, and how you're open to following God's plan for your life and your purpose. But have you got any specific examples of, like, challenges that you faced in motherhood, or in starting your coaching practice, or anything around moving, anything that you've really faced in the last few years that you could think of sharing?
Sure. I really, as much as like I said, my children have been such a blessing, but there was a huge part of me that was so resistant to having the twins,
Oh, really?
because I was like, wait a minute, like, this was not a part of the plan. Because I said earlier, I'm a planner, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
structured person, and I'm like, I said 3, I didn't say 4.
Yeah.
Like,
And do you know what? Like, that's the thing that when people have twins, I just feel like, oh my goodness, it's such a big change. It's like, it's
yeah,
one thing adding one little person, but
yeah,
two at the same time, simultaneously. Like,
yes,
how is this possible?
yes, and that's where my mind was. I'm like, this is not possible. And so it's funny because I'm like, they have brought so much joy, and really the essence of who I am,
Yeah.
comes from all of this. It's so funny when they turned 4, like I was just the waterworks queen because I'm like, when they were
Oh.
born, I didn't think any of this would be possible. And now they're 4 and they're, off to school, and,
Oh.
I'm like, I can breathe a little bit easier. I shouldn't say completely easy,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. But when I found out I was pregnant with them, that was tough. I found out right away, 8 weeks. They
Okay.
were there, 1, 2,
Wow.
and God was preparing me for it. Though I dreamt that I was having twins before we had that appointment,
Oh, so
but I was like, oh no, that couldn't be, couldn't be, But it was, and so I wrestled with it during the whole pregnancy. I just, not that I didn't trust God, but I just couldn't see how I was going to be able to um, be everything that I knew I could be,
Mhm.
and have this huge responsibility because my other 2 children, they were 2 and 4 at the time.
Wow.
So
They're
I was
still
just like,
young.
yeah. So I'm like, I only had one in school part day,
Yeah.
at the time. So I just was like, okay. But what I learned, what I have learned throughout that whole thing, like God just showed me one day, he was like, you're really going to have to trust me, and you're going to see how it's all going to work together for my good.
Yeah.
But the area where I struggled was knowing that it was a blessing, but my mind not being there yet. And
Mhm.
so I think I beat myself up a little bit over that, but I finally gave myself the space to feel the way I needed to feel about it,
Yeah.
to really trust God and put it back in his hands.
Yeah.
And so from that, it's so funny because I would not have my coaching practice today if I if I wasn't the mom of those kids,
Yeah.
because what I do is I help families.
Right.
And that's my work. And like I said, it comes so naturally for me. And God told me while I was pregnant with them, I remember it like it was yesterday. He told me, I'm going to use your family for ministry. So
Mm.
he's like, just allow it to unfold. It's not comfortable. Growth never is comfortable, though. So it was just one of those things that I really just had to understand that when your territory is being enlarged or your capacity is growing, it's not comfortable. There's discomfort in that.
Yeah.
However, there is so much strength. Like if you stick with it and you don't give up, and I've learned to surround myself with people who pour into me. My mother-in-law would tell me all the time, you're equipped, you're equipped, you're equipped. And I did not want to hear it. I was like, I don't want to hear I'm equipped. This is hard. But one of the things I learned in all of that, I started thinking about the idea of a marathon runner, and
Yes.
what I thought about was, I'm like, they don't run the 26 marathons when they first start. They got to start at mile 1.
Yeah.
It's anything that you want to become good at. You start with the baby steps, but it's the consistency. You keep showing up, you keep working at it. You may get an injury like a runner, but you ice it, you pat yourself back up, and you keep going.
Yeah.
So that was my challenge, like really just coming to terms with the fact that you are about to be a mother of 4.
Yeah. Going
and
from 2 to 4.
yeah, and accepting it and rolling with it and knowing that everything else that God has for me is still going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just, it might not look the way that I had created it in my mind,
Mhm.
but Janine, I can honestly tell you, it's been so much better than I ever could have created it for
For
myself.
yourself,
So,
yeah. That's amazing. And I love the fact that you said you gave yourself the space to feel the way that you felt, because sometimes again, it goes back to the expectations, but we might feel a certain way about a situation, and then you feel bad for feeling
mm,
that way, and then you get on a guilt trip on yourself, like, oh, like, for example, if you're a mum who doesn't really feel like she wants to be a stay-at-home mum and feels like she needs to be outside of the home to work and she just needs that adult interaction, some people will be like, oh, do you know what, I feel bad, like I should want to stay home with my child. But actually, you have to allow yourself to feel the way you feel first, and then work through that emotion, and then bring the logic to it, and then, you know, if you're a woman of faith, then pray about it, and then work through it. But don't feel bad for feeling the way you feel, because you have to
Yes.
you have to
Yes.
feel, right? We have emotions for a reason.
Yes.
So yeah, it's awesome that was your starting place, but then you worked through things and then got your headspace into the place where it's like, okay, I can do this. I'm just gonna go with the flow a little bit,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
see how this all pans out.
Yes.
So yeah, that's definitely amazing. So what would you say then is your relationship like with your husband? Because if you've got four little people, how do you manage to keep that relationship going and strong, and you know, there, if you've got the four kids?
So, you know, I can honestly say my husband, he is my best friend, you know. And I think the great thing for us is we started off as good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we have that foundational piece where we have a solid friendship, I feel like we're able to communicate well with each other.
Yeah.
And so we also started off with, we did premarital counseling before we got married, and
Mm-hmm.
we laid ground rules as to how we would communicate, you know. And it's funny because we still use a lot of what we learned over, 12 years ago, you know, in our marriage today. We've been married 10 years now, but engaged for a year and a half. But one of the things that we did in the beginning of our marriage was we had a designated night for our date night. And we stuck to that even through all of the changes, you know.
Awesome.
It's not always out, you know, sometimes it's a date night in, but we're committed to that day.
Yeah.
You know, and we've had to change it, so it's not been the same night the whole time we've been married. You know, there have been some times where we've had to move it like midweek.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it gets to be on the weekend, but the key has been just keeping that space. And then the other thing that we do is, in order to, you know, keep each other at the forefront, is, you know, it's the communication piece. Like,
Yeah.
he comes home and I greet him, you know, as soon as he walks in the door. And that's something that we also started out in our marriage. Like, he never comes in and I'm on the phone, and vice versa, you know?
Yeah.
So it's giving each other priority, you know, and precedence. And like I said, I feel like when you started off as a friendship, it gives you an opportunity to really know the person's heart. But there's something else that we do, or that we did a couple years ago, that I actually worked through with my clients, which is an activity where we sat down and we looked at what our core values were, and what's important to us individually, what's important to us as a couple, and what we wanted to teach to our children as we brought children into the marriage.
Yeah.
And so that has given us a roadmap, or a blueprint, if you will, for having this central thing to come back to, you know, even when we have those times of disconnect.
Yeah.
I can go on and on and on. I'm like, we also travel alone at least once a year. You know, sometimes we get lucky enough to do it 2 or 3 times a year. His parents are super supportive. They live a mile away.
Oh,
so
awesome. They'll have the kids?
Yeah, so for our 10-year anniversary, we got to go away for 8 days on a cruise.
Wow.
And they kept the kids. Our 5-year, we were in Europe for 11 days, and they kept the kids. So, you know, we have support of our family, and we're very strategic about making the time for each other.
Yeah.
He tells me when I need to adjust things, you know, and vice versa. So, it's just we have each other's ear, and I believe, for me, that foundational piece, again, it goes back to Christ. Everything goes back to him. I remember probably, I would say, at the 7-year mark in our marriage, like, there were just things that I couldn't always see why he was making decisions for our family. And God showed me or revealed to me, he's like, you can't change his heart. Only I can do that. So you need to love him, you know, pray for him, and just continue to be his friend and his wife, his lover, all of that. And you let me work on the heart piece. So really, you know, just being obedient to Christ and that submission piece, you know, has really, I feel like, you know, really helped keep our marriage solid.
That's awesome. There's so many good tips in there. So many good tips in there. I love that you guys make that time for each other and like prioritize each other, and keep that. It all comes down to communication, like you said. And I think people say it a lot but don't always take it on board. Like, what does that actually mean? Because sometimes the communication can be stuff that you don't really want to hear, which
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's tough to swallow. I remember not too long ago, actually, my husband just saying to me, like, all you want to do is spend time on this business, and that's all well and good, but not at the expense of us and our family. And I'm just like, whoa, that was like a slap in the face, like big time, because I was like, do you know what? I'm just losing. The priorities are not in the right place. Like, it's all well and good, but if I build this business and my husband walks out the door, what was the point?
Right.
So like, what was the point? So it's just always being open to the other person's feelings and just being like, you know what, yes, let me put this down, let's set some time, we need to reconnect and have some time together. So yeah, I think it's like you said, it's really important to always be checking back in with each other and making sure that you've got boundaries around
Yes.
yourself. And yeah, you're in it. When you're married, you're in it for the long haul. And if you have to call on like the friends and family to just take the kids, do that. If you need to pray together, do that. If you need to, whatever it is you need to do, it's making sure that the foundation stays the foundation. um so yeah,
Yes.
I definitely think people should take on board some of those tips tips that you gave, because those are like really good. So one other thing that I wanted to ask you then is in relation to the unexpected, I guess the fact that you were going to be having twins being unexpected. Um, what would you say to someone else who's listening, who's going through an unexpected pregnancy? I know your whole pregnancy wasn't unexpected because you were planning it, but as in having, an unexpected extra person coming into your life, are there any tips you could give to someone, or any words of kind of encouragement or inspiration for someone who's listening right now and thinking, this was not in the plan, and how are we going to do this?
Well, the first thing I would say, just the reminder that it's a gift. And like we started off the conversation, not only is it a gift, but it's an honor. Like, when I shifted my perspective to understand that God has entrusted me with this, like,
Yeah.
look at how much he values me because he thinks I can do it.
Hmm.
So instead of feeling like, oh, loathing it, I really started thinking about how much he loves me. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. you
Hmm.
know and I'm like, he like my mother-in-law would tell me, you're equipped. And that's what I would say to her. You're equipped. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of times we look at it as an inconvenience,
Hmm.
and yes, it is a bit, of an inconvenience. But one of the things that I've learned along my journey, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about your business and understanding where it falls, is when you do the things that God wants you to do, He's always going to give you space and time back for the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
That's
I
just the
love
way it
that. Yeah.
works. So,
Yeah.
we just have to be open. We have to be flexible. We have to be, um, I always tell my clients, I'm like, you don't know who you're raising. You don't know who he's bringing to life through you. It could be a
Yeah.
president, it could be an ambassador. You just never know. So,
Yeah.
again, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to build his kingdom.
Yeah.
And so I just really put myself in this place where like I said, I always allow myself to feel, because nobody wants a positive patch on something when you're really when you're really trying to figure and work through things. But
Yeah.
once you give yourself that space, I say you get your 15-minute pity party, play out those emotions, but get back up, dust yourself off, and then just do the next step, do the very next thing. And, each day you'll get more strength. You will get more strength to do more and more. So that's what I would
Yeah.
tell her. I would tell her to just, not only have faith, but understand that you're equipped and that it's,
You can do this.
Yes, it's a
Yeah.
blessing. You've been called.
Yeah, and also it's about, I think, surrounding yourself with positive people too. Because I was talking to someone the other day just about, and actually when I was pregnant, this came up too, about how a lot of the time people complain, or I don't know, people tend to find it easier to complain than to talk positively, especially when it comes to like pregnancy and motherhood. It's always about the aches and the pains and the sleep, like you can't sleep and this and that. And I remember when I was pregnant, my pregnancy was quite good at the beginning, and so I was like, why is everyone complaining? This is awesome. Like this is a privilege. This is amazing. This is life growing inside of me. Like it's just really a positive thing. When I got to like 8 months and I was massive, I was a bit less vocal about that. But I still maintain the fact that this is life, and you've been given the opportunity to partake in like creating life. And
Yes.
so whatever you go through that goes along with that is still something to be celebrated. So instead of people just focusing on the negatives of motherhood, or like how hard it is, if you shift your mindset to, like you said, the privilege of it and the joy that comes with raising a little person and just watching their personality unfold, yeah, your outlook's just going to be different. And so if you're if you don't have people in your network who can have that positive view, then, and you're in the space where you're like, oh, I don't know how this is going to work out, then you need to find those people. Like you need to
Yes.
find people that are going to lift you up and encourage you in this like amazing new phase of womanhood, because it's beautiful. It's just you can't even, yeah, you can't even deny how amazing it is, even in the hard times.
Right. You were so right that you hit it dead on.
Yeah, so I would say just embrace it, live
Yes.
it, and grow
Embrace
through
it.
it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Oh, it's been so good talking to you. Thank you so much.
As
So
well.
if anyone wanted to connect with you and find out more about how you help families, where would they find you, on social media, on your website? Just share with us where they could go to find out more.
So my website is www.entricerowe.com, my name. And then on Instagram, you can find me under The Guilt Free Family. I also have a Facebook community called The Guilt Free Family.
Okay.
So they can join me there. And I'm on Periscope as Entrice Rowe. So,
It's been lovely talking to you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ah, that was a great conversation. Every now and then you come across someone who really inspires you, and I have to say that Entrice really inspired me. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. There were so many actionable tips in there about dealing with your feelings, embracing the twists and turns of motherhood, and prioritizing your relationship with your spouse. I just want to encourage you that even when the juggle gets difficult and things get tough, just remember that you are doing an amazing work. So keep on keeping on. Now, it would be great to hear from you what you enjoyed most about today's episode. So drop me a line at janine@lightboxcoaching.com and let me know. I love hearing from my listeners, and I love hearing what resonates with them from the episodes. So I look forward to hearing from you. I am going to put the links to Entrice's website and her social media platforms in the show notes, which you can find in the usual place at lightboxcoaching.com/episode 11. It would be great if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review for the show so that more women just like you can find the show and join in the conversation. So that's all from me today. So until next time, look after you and look after your babies.
The More Than a Lawyer podcast features music from Ben Sound.